we'll hear, sort of plans that we know from experience usually don't work, where it's like, we're going to conscript this account manager that that's really busy with all these fires to also help out in the sales capacity when he or she has time, and that's not going to work.
Welcome to the Happy Clients Podcast, brought to you by Dot and Company. Whether you're a virtual assistant, an agency owner, or a client-facing account manager, we all deal with clients. Lucky for you, client management is what we do best. Now, let's dig in, chat cam life, and have some fun along the way. Cheers to happy clients.
Remember when running an agency meant solving exciting problems, crafting killer strategies, and building meaningful relationships with clients? And now it feels like chasing emails, double-checking deadlines, and micromanaging the details. Let Copper CRM bring the spark back. Built for Google Workspace, Copper helps digital agencies automate follow-ups, manage leads effortlessly, and keep client conversations crystal clear without the overwhelm. Stay organized and win your time back, and start loving your work again. Try it for free for 14 days at copper.com/happyclients and use Happy Clients for 15% off of an annual plan while limited time only. Welcome back to the Happy Clients podcast. I am very excited to have Dan Englander here on the show with us today to talk all things sales. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
So we've been connected kind of for a number of years. I've seen your name around and we have a number of familiar connections. So when we finally got on to podcast together, I was very excited to learn from Dan because he has decades of experience working with agencies, especially sales. So the reason that I wanted to have Dan on is, I chat with so many agency owners who are growing and scaling. They're at this sweet spot where they have the clients, they're growing, they have something that works really well. But when they go to scale, it's that sales system or that engine that kind of falls apart, or maybe they run out of ideas, or maybe their referrals dry up. And so I wanted to bring you on to really just share with our audience, how should sales work in an agency and all that good stuff. But let's kind of start from the beginning, Dan. If you could give us a quick overview of who you are and how you work with agencies, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the intro. So my background originally was first like working on the account side for a social media shop, pretty much doing account management work. Back when a community manager was like a thing that existed, and back
Mm.
when companies would just give you all their money to do social media. So that was like my first job out of college, and I was commuting from Astoria, Queens to New Jersey every day through the Port Authority bus terminal, which was horrible. So that was my first foray into the agency space, and then basically like moved to a different job, was the head of new business, and also in a split sort of hybrid sales role for a creative house, and we were selling animated video into large companies and doing a lot of like startup explainer videos, and we worked with a lot of different verticals. So I was having to balance my time between managing clients and like making sure that managing communications with the production team while also prospecting for new business. So I learned a whole lot from that. And then it ended up starting Sales Schema, where we have done, historically done for you lead generation for clients. Better part of 10 years. About a year ago, we pivoted the company to a training and coaching model, which is what we do. And because we came to the belief that it's better for our clients to own the rev gen function, and we want to teach them how to do that, basically.
Sweet. So when agencies come to you for help, what's the pain point that they're facing?
Yeah, really good question. I think the biggest pain point is something along the lines of inconsistency, cobbler's children problems. Hey, we do really great work for our clients, but not for ourselves. Everything is unpredictable. I want something that's more reliable. And at the other end of that, the goals can vary. It could be, hey, I need to get acquired in 3 years and cash out and retire. It could be, I want to scale this thing to the moon, which I'd say is less common than it used to be. Or it could just mean like I'm tired of staring at the ceiling at night because I have one client that makes up 50% of my revenue, right? So a lot of the goals can vary, but it's usually I want more repeatability is the main pain point.
So are most of the agencies, they're relying on referrals and they don't know how to go to outbound? Is that kind of? how it usually looks?
That's common. Yeah, is basically like all the businesses come from sort of reactive new business processes is what we call them, like referrals and, waiting around for the phone to ring, or we're on this RFP circuit that like dominates our team and is horrible for a month, and looking to get to something that's more consistent. And I can get more into that in a bit, but a lot of the times it's building like a system that's going to work for the resources the agency actually has, and the resources meaning like people and time and know-how and that kind of thing, versus what we see a lot of agencies do, which is like look at the lessons from the software business and so-called like B2B sales best practices and try to make all of that work for a complex service model that's not really meant for like mass adoption, right?
Right.
So that's often the challenge that we see immediately. Yeah.
So when an agency is looking to, I guess, crack this code on what I call a growth engine,
Yeah.
what do you think is the right balance between inbound marketing, so working on referrals and content and all this stuff, versus outbound, which is where you help agencies, right?
Yeah. It's a good question. So I think the lines between inbound and outbound have gotten a lot more blurry, right? So for example, you could be doing outbound to get guests onto your podcast to create content and then also sell things to those guests if they're strategic relationships, right? Or you could be using, you could be sending content in certain ways in an outbound fashion from inbound. So like these things can go both play off each other. I think the question we like to answer first is like, what is the best starting point for the agency and the resources it has? Historically, like we used to go and set up outbound plays and funnels and stuff, and our whole approach is about leveraging trust and looking for the people that are going to be most likely to trust our clients based on something that they have in common on either a business or a personal level. So that's like a huge mouthful. But to give an example, the most simple, basic one is like, well, you want to reach these CMOs and these travel tourism companies. Well, there's 50 of them in your backyard. Like, let's start with them because they'll talk to you, right? And then going on from there and coming up with more and more of these commonalities. More recently, this is a rabbit hole, so I don't want to go digress too much, but I think it's basically gotten harder to do outbound directly to prospects because of skepticism and because of technical changes that internet service providers have made. So one direction we're taking the company is more towards strategic relationships and referrals and the stuff that's timeless, but doing it in a more repeatable, consistent way and changing how the agency goes about that. Yeah.
Hmm. That's really interesting. And I've felt that as well from maybe the other side being a consumer, having so
Yeah.
many people reaching out, so many phone calls a day, text messages, emails. It's just, it's not what it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, skepticism. You're right. That's definitely it. I'm feeling that too.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about referrals and kind of coming up with a system, because I know I've struggled with that. We have amazing referral partners, but how do you make that into a predictable system?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's funny because when I was prospecting for agency services and even for my own business, which is not used to be not dissimilar from an agency, my process was like being like, okay, I'm going to identify my ICP and I'm going to go meet people in that space. I'm going to say, hey, here's who I'm looking to meet, these titles, these verticals. Like, do you know anyone? And I did that enough times, and then usually nothing would happen, right? It would sort of people would want to help, and there'd be nice conversations, but nothing would come of it. And that when in my previous life, that probably went on for years like that. And the reason was that I was asking somebody to basically like climb Mount Everest. I was basically like, you've got to understand. First, you have to trust me. That's table stakes. Then you have to understand what we do. Then you have to scan your mental Rolodex. Then you have to scan your actual Rolodex. Then you've got to write an email that describes what we do. Then you got to make sure that you're okay with that description and that the other person's okay with it. And it's like, this just isn't going to happen. We're all too busy. So the way that we're helping our clients get more consistent is by actually getting to the point where you can go to somebody and say, I saw that you might know this person or these people. Would you feel comfortable introducing me? And then making that process as easy as possible on that person and
Hmm.
doing that over and over again. So it's not, you know, it's one of these things that will take time and effort, but it's much higher leverage than a lot of other things the agency could be doing because it's frankly like usually what our clients have done to build the agency to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And so so you would coach an agency on, okay, here's how you're going to go find your ideal client and then find people who might know them. And then here's the type of message you should send. Here's how to track it, yada, yada, yada.
Exactly. But before we can even do that, I think one of the biggest reasons that any, you know, inbound, outbound doesn't matter, any of these initiatives fail is just really like lack of clarity. So the agency is like, I kind of have this fuzzy idea of like we have this good client over here, this other good one over there. So like the first thing we do is we're like, we've got to figure out what does that ICP look like brass tacks, size of company, like what does it look like? And then show our clients to teach them how to build that specific list of basically their total addressable market. And that if it's hard for the agency, it's a good sign that that's the thing they need most is like really just being able to build that list. Like you and I have both been in the agency space for a long time. We could build that list in our sleep. We could just be like, I can literally look at an agency logo and name and know if it's an agency versus like an ad tech company or something else that's not a fit, right? So getting to that sort of like spidey sense about it. And then from there, that is the foundation for basically mapping those referrals into the right account, right? And I'll pause there, but I can go further into it if you want.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's really interesting to hear that referrals and connections are becoming such a priority versus over the last few years, I feel like most things I hear in our industry is, you know, build your own lead gen funnel with cold traffic and, how do you go get people on LinkedIn cold? And it's interesting to hear from your perspective that that's shifting back towards building these deeper relationships.
Yeah, and I want to add some nuance here. Like one thing that I hate is when you hear someone say like X is dead. Like there's all these
Yeah.
consultants, and all that means is like that person's selling the thing that's competing with X. So we still do that. We still do outbound. We still love cold. But it's sort of like if we're thinking about things in terms of like the 80/20, you know, the Pareto principle, I'm not sure that that's the best starting place for most agencies. Now, if they're sophisticated and they've done it before and they like have the resources for it, they could definitely start with that. But the reason we're shifting to relationships again is that cold is possible. It's just harder than it used to be. And
Hmm.
our whole thing is like, classic SWOT analysis, like strength, opportunity, probably in the relationships the agency's already made. And yeah, and then so basically, like, if you want me to keep going with it, the next thing we're doing is helping our clients map who they would actually ask for a referral from, right? So usually the biggest objection we get is like, hey, I've got all these fake connections, I don't know who they are or whatever, and there's a lot of people I wouldn't ask. And I think one thing that makes our approach different is that we acknowledge that relationships are complicated. So we're not trying to fully automate this process. So a lot of it is like when our clients go through this, they're like, oh, I forgot about that person. Oh, I forgot about that person. Oh, I forgot about, and you're basically trying to get to this short list of like all these people that you forgot about that would probably help you and are like able to help you once you give them a little more specific guidance, basically.
Yeah. And how much of your coaching is actual tactical strategy versus accountability? Because I know agency owners and being one myself, I feel like a part of this is just having somebody who's like, did you do the things you need to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we've had the training business for about a year, so there's a lot of stuff I'm learning about it too. Because before we were just kind of doing this for people. But it's definitely something like half and half-ish, I would say. Like we have our proprietary system that involves LinkedIn and SOPs and go here and do this. But a lot of it is just like, hey, we're gonna have this group call every week, and you were supposed to do these things. Did you do them? And so on. So but I find you probably find the same thing. Like nobody wants that at the beginning. So people like come for the proprietary this and that and stay for the accountability, but not the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So
So are you also coaching agencies on their sales systems once they get the leads, or is it just once you get the lead, then it's on you?
So it's a good question. We are so, and we're usually doing that so far through the group calls we're having as people are kind of getting these opportunities. The main focus is just getting these leads in, and I think that a lot of the times prospecting and lead gen is it's sort of thought about in this like industrial age way, where it's like you have the lead and then this other thing happens and this other thing happens, but like the nature of the lead is also going to affect the sales process. And what we tend to see is that when the agency is used to referrals, they're getting somebody at a much further along buyer state, right? So they may not be used to like somebody that's not there yet, but they have to get used to that, or otherwise they're only going to deal with a tiny reactive sliver of the market that's solution aware. So a lot of the coaching is really just figuring out like, hey, you've got to maybe introduce more steps into your process. Maybe this is back, to where content and inbound has a function because you might need to get people further indoctrinated or educated before they're ready to buy from you. But regardless, like this is kind of fueling the system and fueling people into into the pipeline basically.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, what are some wins that you've had with agencies in the small to medium size in this coaching program? If I'm an agency owner listening, it's like what can I expect when I start to implement some of these strategies?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is first getting clarity. So I think the biggest win is just like understanding really like this market that I thought was X is actually Y, right? And like even agencies that we've worked with that are super well specialized, we've never had a situation where people can't make the lens like 20 to 30% clearer. And once you do that, regardless of our specific initiatives, like once you do that, that can make everything else work better. Because then you're like, actually, we're not going to do this other thing over here that was going to consume 3, 6, 12 months because the market is different than we thought it was. So I think that's one of the biggest early wins, and that's typically happening in like the first 14 days or so. It's just getting that market figured out. From there, a lot of it is getting, the networks figured out, figuring out like honestly who's doing what is also a win, getting clarity around people. Because we'll hear, sort of plans that we know from experience usually don't work, where it's like, we're going to conscript this account manager that that's really busy with all these fires to also help out in the sales capacity when he or she has time, and that's not going to work. So, nine times, not out of 9 times out of 10, but often it's an owner. Other times it's a dedicated biz dev person, but it's somebody that has real skin in the game for prospecting and for like closing deals. So that's a big part too. And then from there, downstream, like once we get these systems set up and we get people actually executing them, it's getting meetings in. We had people ramp up to getting, 12, 15, 20 meetings in the first month or two from launch and just like really kind of learning this outreach skill set for the first time. Um, and a big part of that and like really like who we're a fit for are typically agencies that really want to own this function as opposed to outsourcing it. Like we were the outsource company for a long time. And we came to the belief that, if our clients are really serious about all the things that they say they are, like growth and getting acquired and all these things, like RevGen has to be owned. Like you're not just going to like rent it out. It's like a band-aid. And, saying like, oh, well, I'll just put the band-aid on for a little while and take it off again. It's like, no, it'll either like, it just won't come off. Like you've got to eventually learn these skills and do it and make it
Mm-hmm.
part of the agency. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a huge takeaway. Definitely, if you are serious about growing your agency, this needs to be a huge importance and a function within your leadership team, really.
Yeah, exactly. Mhm.
That's amazing. Well, I learned a lot. Anything else an agency owner should know about sales before we wrap this up?
Probably a lot. But I think for now, I think the biggest thing is that like I'm really sort of coming to the belief that the biggest opportunity for agencies is sort of like in front of them, and it's with the people that already trust the agency, or or the people that are in the periphery of that. So regardless of our program or anything else, I think that that's the thing to focus on, especially as recession fears are floating around and so on.
Totally. Amazing. Well, where can people find you, Dan, and learn more about your coaching program?
Yeah, so we have a special offer, which is my book, which I have in front of me. So I'm going to go super salesy and put it on the
I
screen.
love it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going hard sell. Relationship sales at scale basically covers all this approach and more. And there's limited time bonus that's like me reading it and a recorded workshop. So that's at saleschema.com/dot.
Amazing. Well, head over there and definitely check out that book. And thank you so much, Dan, for coming on the show. I know agency owners, like I said at the beginning, every agency owner needs help with sales. So I'm sure everyone will be reaching out and asking for help. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Bailey, this is awesome and excited to have you on our show as well.
Yay. Thanks, Dan.
Cheers to happy clients.